Hello there, I'm Natalie Brand. I've been a piano teacher for over 23 years. I have definitely seen some things change when I started teaching in the 1990s until now. So if it's your goal to learn or to teach piano in 2026, then there's some things you must know that could save you from unnecessary frustration and discouragement and keep you from wasting time, maybe even wasting years. A lot of my 23-year plus teaching career has been very rewarding. But a lot of those years was frustration and pressure. And it was probably a similar journey for my students. When they were playing what they wanted, they were happy. And when they were struggling through something, I noticed a lot of frustration and discouragement. And standing here now and looking back over those 23 years, if I think of the main challenges, there are definitely some things that seemed harder as the years progressed than they did when I first started teaching. And there were definitely some differences in the way teaching had to be approached so I could help my later students succeed. Why is that, and what does it mean for you as a learner or a teacher today? So first, let's go way back. When I first started teaching last century in the 1990s, I was 16 years old when I first started teaching, and I've been teaching ever since then, other than some years I took off while raising my sons. Back then was a time period before everybody had tech in their pockets, and it was before everyone having internet in their home became mainstream. I learned piano classically by learning to read traditional sheet music, and this is the way I taught back then too. All my students learned the same way, and they pretty much made good progress. If they wanted to play a specific song, we literally had to go to the sheet music store, try different variations, and buy the one that would be the best for them. It was probably about 12 years that I taught this way. So fast forwarding a few years after I had been on a break raising my sons, we had just moved to a new state, and I decided to reestablish and reopen my piano teaching studio. But almost from day one, I quickly realized that things had changed. Students weren't making the exact same progress as the way they had always done before. The first thing I noticed almost across the board was it was a lot harder to get students to practice. I realized that most of my students were in several activities, after-school programs, sports, sometimes learning other instruments at school at the same time. And if they were my adult students, then their lives were even busier and fuller than their children. So in most cases, in the same time period, students weren't learning as much as they had when I first started teaching. It was taking them longer to get to the same results. Going through the method books was taking longer. Students were making slower progress due to the fact that they weren't getting in much practice throughout the weeks. I tried to keep students motivated with contests, prizes, games, and I even took on the pressure of always making sure they had a song they were really excited about alongside what we were doing in their method books because I thought this would help motivate them. This took me a lot of time and research to find the songs that my students could succeed on the most. And even then, when a deadline was approaching, like a recital, I still spent a lot of time, as you probably heard me say in previous videos, Frankensteining and heavily editing these songs so they would actually be ready for the student to play with confidence. One thing that I started noticing was with less practice happening, I felt like a lot of what we had learned the previous week would kind of go out of my students' brains naturally. And so we'd spend part of each lesson relearning those things until they finally started to stick. So I felt like I was barely keeping some of my students in maintenance mode because there wasn't time after that to really learn a lot at the end of the lesson. Sometimes I even had parents approach me asking why their student wasn't learning as much as another student, and this was just so frustrating. But I'd still double down on my efforts trying to get students to practice, and sometimes it felt like I was literally dragging people along. This isn't to diss anybody, it's just the world we were living in, and at the time I couldn't see it as clearly as I can nowadays, but I really feel like the main thing that changed is humans just got busier and distracted. We started having information literally at our fingertips. A whole computer was in our hands with our devices. And even before that, just from the internet becoming in everyone's home, people were starting to be expected to be available a lot more around the clock. Basically, I feel like most of us humans just kind of moved away into a time where we have less of an attention span because we have so much coming at us. In fact, if you're still here at this part of the video, then I totally applaud you for having a little bit of an extra attention span to continue watching and not squirreling off to something else. Now we have so much entertainment and novelty right at our fingertips. And now people are starting to be able to get any answers they need immediately from AI. The world is changing fast. But one thing that still has not changed is that literally no one can learn piano for you except you. You're the one who basically teaches yourself to play piano with all of your reps while your teacher of choice guides you, whether that's in person, whether that's on a video or a course. Apps and programs cannot learn for you. You are the only one that can do those specific finger movements that it takes to start sounding good at piano. So in this fast-paced world today where people simply do have more coming at them, we're all immersed in it, it feels more important than ever for piano teachers to clearly lay out what it is going to take for someone who wants to learn piano for them to reach a certain level of excellence in the areas they want. And for those who want to learn piano to clearly see what it is they're committing to and what it's going to take in most cases, so they can match the time that they're willing to put in with their expectations. Of course, there may always be some unknowns in this. You may respond better than you thought to certain aspects of learning. Maybe you've already built up similar brain pathways in some other areas, or maybe you've learned another instrument and it really helped propel you forward here. But depending on age, injuries, many things that we might not realize, learning may be slower than you thought. But as a general rule, I'm about to share with you what I wish I would have known to say and to offer to potential students coming in over the last 15 or so years. So now I'm about to illustrate a point for you on this graph. This is not an exact science, but I'm loosely basing this on the way my experience has gone over the past several years. So let's say that it's going to take someone 50 specific movements, moving their fingers the way they would have to do in a specific song in order to play 3 songs really well, especially if they're having to read traditional music off the page and learn quite slowly. If that person is only able to practice with you once a week to upkeep their skills, and there are 52 weeks in a year, then that is saying it would take someone an entire year to learn those 3 songs. Now, if that's the speed they kept up, it might take clear until 8 years when they're finally starting to be able to play a larger collection of songs that they are starting to feel confident on. It's not even likely that a student is going to stick with that speed for that many years. Chances are they're going to quit earlier and still not be able to go to the piano and confidently play much, especially if they were also having to build the skill of reading music at the same time, because that can quickly be forgotten faster than even the finger skills. But you need to see what you're playing in order to even remember what to play, so they kind of both disappear together. Now, if somebody can even practice 1 extra time a week or 2, they could literally make their journey be cut in half. It could be like around 4 years by the time they start learning all those songs, or, practicing 2 or 3 times a week, it could be only like 2 years. So you could see why you can make such faster progress if you're putting in more time. Now, if somebody could commit to practicing, 5, 6 days a week, then they could really shoot up in their very first year and play a ton of songs. And a lot of the level of songs that people really want to play are somewhere, I'd say, around like the 1,000 reps mark, way beyond what most people here are going to be willing to do. So you can see why it's really necessary to commit to a lot of practice. So with that in mind, what I would do in 2026 if I was interviewing a potential student is I would actually show them 2 paths. First, I'd show them this graph as a reality check of what the road ahead could potentially look like. Again, like I said, it isn't an exact science for everybody, but as a general rule. And if they knew they were the type of person that couldn't get in practice during the week and they wanted to use the lessons to keep them going, I would not take them on as a student if they wanted to learn to read music. It's just too much. There's just too many gaps to try and fill, and it's too discouraging and it takes too long. If they wanted to learn to read music and they were absolutely committed, they could at least practice 3 days a week, then I might take them on in a traditional way to teach them to read music that way. I do in fact know some piano teachers that do not take on a student unless they commit to a certain amount of practice for teaching this classical way. And even if the student commits to it, later on if they find out they are not keeping up the practice commitment, they will let them go as a student. I never wanted to do this because I always had a belief that everyone could learn to play the piano, and I wanted it so badly for my students. I wanted to help them along the best I could, even if their lives seemed insanely busy. But if I knew then what I know now, I could have presented them with a faster way of learning, which is option number 2. And that is not by learning traditional music from the get-go. That is just learning on lead sheets. And here's an example of a lead sheet. You can read the melody. You do not have to read a left hand. Instead, the left hand is shown by chord symbols. So somebody would be learning their chords, And what I would do with them is get them really comfortable to where they could read their right hand. They knew enough rhythm and notes to read that. Then we'd learn their chords, and I would slowly but surely help them learn how to be creative in these type of songs. Learn how to add in different patterns, do different things with their left hand so they're not just bored playing like your basic block chords all of the time. That way, they could be having quick wins. They could learn several songs once they got the foundation down. So they wouldn't be in danger of forgetting so much of what they learned every week. Here's an example on sheetmusicdirect.com. If you type in the word lead sheet, it says there are almost 30,000 song options to choose from. And if someone's struggling even with reading the right hand, I would just choose Easy Play Today songs for them. You literally type in the letters E, Z, Play Today. And these kind of songs come up that literally show the letter name inside the note head. So if someone comes in and they're worried they won't have a good amount of practice time, just take yourselves off the hook and learn songs like this. You can start to have fun immediately, and later if you find out that you will actually have a lot of practice time open up, you can always switch to the method of learning to read traditional sheet music. Now, if you are a person who wants to learn in a way that is super fast, where you don't even have to struggle through learning how to read even your right hand, you want everything you need on the page in front of you, then that is literally the reason I made Piano with Ease music the way I did. There's special visuals. The note name is in every single note head. Every single note has a fingering assigned, so you don't even have to wonder which fingering you should use. If there's a black note in the right or left hand, it will be highlighted in yellow so you can't forget it. So if lead sheets save you time, Piano with Ease music saves you even tons of time that it would have taken to even read lead sheets. A lot of people consider lead sheets easy music, but you still have a lot to learn as far as reading notes, learning rhythms, learning some of the rules about putting black notes in before you can even start to get creative with your left-hand chords. This way allows you to just zip right to learning in a way that is easy to remember because it's literally on the page in front of you. There's over 200 songs that have been made this way. You'll also have visuals for things that people tend to forget, like repeats and exactly which notes are in a seventh chord. And if you're supposed to hold out a note, you're going to see hold arrows to remind you to keep the beat. If your fingering pattern switches or if you cross, you're going to be reminded. So to recap everything we've talked about in 2026, if you're someone who wants to learn piano or teach piano, then I would look at the two paths. Decide if you're a person who is ready to make piano a large part of your life, if you want to learn to read traditional sheet music and get in all the necessary finger movements that you'll need for that. If you know you're not going to be able to commit to that amount of time, just dive into lead sheets and start having fun. Better yet, I'd love to see you in my Piano with Ease group. There are 3 tiers in it. Right now, at the time of this video, there is actually a free tier, so you can come in risk-free and try some songs in the Piano with Ease style. You'll see from the very beginning how having all of these visuals and each finger number helps you learn immediately. In less than an hour, you can have a piano solo, and you'll already see how you can start putting patterns in the left hand from your very first lessons. And even when you see this video later, when the free tier becomes paid, it's still going to be very low cost. So I'd love to see you in there. And if you're a teacher, I'd love to see you check out all of the different Piano with Ease variations. You'll save yourself from having to hurry and heavily edit music if your student can have a quick win of a song they can learn quickly for a recital. Knowing what to offer for these 2 different paths would have saved me as a teacher and my students a lot of frustration and gave them a lot more satisfaction for being able to have options for what they could play. With this in mind, you're better prepared of what you need to ask and look for in 2026. I wish you the very best in your piano journey.